I'm so excited. We're going to continue in the big cats spirit, the big cats vein. We have Shivani Bhalla joining us. She was born and raised in Kenya. She believes that the key to lion conservation is working in partnership with local communities. She's a National Geographic explorer. She founded Ewaso Lions in 2007 to promote coexistence between carnivores and people. This is a project she now co-leads with her incredible team. Shivani, with her team, have created a number of successful community programs, including the Warrior Watch, Mama Simba, and Lion Kids camps. So coming to us live, I can see her backstage. Looks like an incredible view. Hey, Shivani, how you doing?
Hi, Joe. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, there's a little bit in the background, but I hear you nice and clear.
Okay, it is absolutely super windy right now, but I'm on top of a hill where hopefully it's the best connection.
All right. Well, no, the connection looks really good. The view looks incredible. I'm in my basement right now, and I see a pile of snow when I look out my window. So I like your view a lot better.
Thank you so much, Joe, for having me today. And it was great to have Beverly before speaking about the Big Cats Initiative. We're one of the grantees, so it's just fantastic to have that continuity talking about big cats. It is super windy here. I also don't have much of a voice, so you have very graciously agreed to play a pre-recording for me, which I did earlier on when there was no wind. So, and then I'll be around for the Q&A afterwards. So looking forward to this, and thank you so much for listening and for having me here again. I was only 8 years old when my parents brought me here to Samburu on safari. I would never have imagined back then that Samburu would now be my home for the past 20 years. During that safari, I will never forget this moment. I saw my first ever cheetah. And yes, this picture looks a little bit grainy, but it is this moment, capturing this moment of this cheetah walking through the bush in Samburu, is what cemented my passion for wildlife and for conservation. I think I horrified my parents a little bit. I said, one day I'm going to be a ranger trying to protect wildlife. At one point I wanted to be a wildlife vet. But I realized very early on that I'm too soft. If there's any sick animal, I cry for days. But it was over the years I figured out exactly what I wanted to do. I wanted to be in the bush. I wanted to be looking for wildlife and protecting them, because at that very early age, I knew wildlife was in trouble in Kenya. Fast forward many years, I moved to Samburu back in 2002. And I came here for a weekend and never left. And I'll never forget that. But I really did fall in love with this place. And I moved out of Nairobi very quickly. And I started to try and see, is there a possibility of me trying to understand what is happening with the cheetah population here? That 8-year-old child in me and that obsession I had with cheetahs never went away. And so I said, I was pursuing my master's degree at the time. I said, let me pursue my master's and focus on the cheetahs. And let me see what is happening with the cheetahs in Samburu and what can I do to protect them. But I drove around for 3 months and I never found any cheetahs. I looked absolutely everywhere, but what I was finding were lions. And I realized that actually no one knows anything about lions up here in northern Kenya. And this was a real opportunity for me to learn what is happening with them. And so I did my master's trying to understand more about this lion population. And all it did, my master's, was open up 100 unanswered questions. And at the end of it, I said, this can't be the end. There's so much more to be known about this lion population here in Samburu. I wasn't seeing big prides of lions like I used to see growing up as a child going to Masai Mara. I was seeing solitary lions or very small groups of lions. Sometimes I would see lions leave the park and disappear, and I didn't know what was happening to them. And that was when I decided this was something that had to be long-term. I very quickly realized that lions across the continent are in serious trouble. Their numbers have plummeted. There's only about 20,000 lions left in Africa. And here in my country, Kenya, just about 2,500 lions. Lions are running out of space. They are coming into contact with people more. They don't have enough food. The number of threats that lions face is immense. And it was at that time I was trying to figure out my future. And I said, let me continue this lion study. But I was given one piece of very, very bad advice. I was told that if I wanted to have a successful conservation project, if I wanted people to take me seriously, if I wanted to raise funding, I needed a PhD. And I realized I'm not really an academic, I'm not really a scientist, but I was pressured into doing a PhD. And it was a very, very hard journey. Because I started the PhD, but I knew that I wasn't going to be someone to do a PhD, collect some data, and then disappear and never leave. I had made a decision during that time, and it was a choice that this was long term, and I was going to be here in Samburu. This was my home. And so I started Ewaso Lions at the same time as my PhD. This was back in 2007. And I started with a very small team. There was just myself and three of our guys, Jeremiah, Francis, and Jenaria. And I was trying to balance the needs of a very new conservation project with my PhD, and I found it really hard. I definitely don't recommend to anyone to start a PhD and a long-term project at the same time. But I did because my passion was in Ewaso Lions. And because of that, I really struggled throughout my PhD journey. I took a lot of gaps, I took a lot of breaks because my heart was in Ewaso Lions. I was working with communities, I was working with my team. I was learning so much about this spectacular landscape and how people and lions coexist and how people live alongside lions. There was so much to learn and there was so much to do. The PhD journey continued for a long time, but in the meantime, Ewaso Lions grew to be a successful conservation, high-impact project. We were able to raise the funds. We were able to build a team. And so I was constantly questioning myself, why did I start this PhD? What kind of advice was I given? And finally, 10 years later, I got my PhD. And it was a hard journey, but the reason I was able to finish is because I made it mine. I made it something that I really believed in. That's something that could really help people and lions to continue to coexist with one another. And finally, the PhD was over and I was able to focus on Ewaso Lions. And I knew that, yes, that was over, but I'm here to stay, to continue what I'm really passionate about. And this was so important for my team because for a few years, I remember Francis coming to me a little concerned and upset saying, are you just coming to collect some data and then will you leave? I mean, what happens to all of us? What happens to what we've built? And I said, absolutely not. This is something long-term and this is something that will stay, that will remain. But the reality is that in some places, what is known as parachute science, my friend Asha de Vos wrote this amazing article a couple of years ago about parachute science, which is also known as colonial science, where people come in from the outside, they don't build capacity, they don't work with local communities, they often undermine the efforts that local people are trying to make in conservation in their own backyards. And it is such a distressing thing to me, and I couldn't even imagine it. And it's something that I hope ends, because we have got to work with the communities and really invest in capacity and building that capacity amongst the people who are living with wildlife. And so Ewaso Lions grew over the years, and I very quickly realized that I'm not here coming to teach people about conservation or to educate people and to come in with my own personal beliefs and my thoughts, and this is what we're going to do and this is how we're going to do it, which is often how parachute scientists work. They come in with their own beliefs and then do whatever they need to do for their own benefit and then leave. This was different. I was coming to learn, and I knew that coexistence between the Samburu communities and wildlife has existed for generations. It's not something new. I was not coming here to teach them about coexistence. But what I was seeing is that it was becoming more challenging. Coexistence is getting harder. This landscape is changing. The pressure on it is changing. And I felt my role in those early days was, how can I work with my team and the communities to try and address some of these new challenges so we can continue to promote that coexistence. And in order to do that, we need to be here. We need to be living here. We need to be from here. And I have now lived here. This has been my home and my work for so long. I live in a tent just here up on the hill. And although working from home has been such a new thing for so many people around the world over the past year, I have worked and lived from home for so many years. And I even struggle now to use the word I'm going into the field, or my team is in the field and we're going to go do field work. This is our day-to-day. My team is scattered throughout these community areas, working from their home, going out every day to look for the lions as part of their work with Ewaso Lions. Through the years, we have developed a number of community programs. We work with warriors, we work with children, we work with elders, and we work with passionate women who are all involved in conservation. But they have always been conservationists. This is about working with the communities, using their traditional values and developing programs that are rooted in the Samburu culture. And that is what Ewaso Lions has been about. I'm so proud that with the support of the communities and the hard work and dedication from our team, we have lions roaming these community landscapes. Here we are, we're not in a protected area, yet lions roam here down by the river. They're breeding, they're moving, and it is all because the custodians of the wildlife, the communities, are living alongside the lions. Over the years, I have changed my role so much in Ewaso Lions. In the early days, I was doing the driving, the cooking, the finances, the fundraising, absolutely everything. But now I am so proud that we're a team of almost 50. Although I started with Jenaria, Francis and Jeremiah, we have the most incredible team. And again, many years ago, I was given some pretty bad advice where someone told me, Shivani, you're going to have to get very used to being the face of Ewaso Lions, because look at conservation projects that are currently existing around the world. There's always one face, there's always one leader, there's always one hero to the story. And I said to myself back in those early days, I'm going to do everything I can to fight this whole concept of this one face model. There is something so fundamentally wrong with putting all the pressure on the leader of the organization. It's not sustainable, it's not great for the person's well-being and health, but it's also not fair. There's something really unjust about it, which bothers me. And over the years, I've worked really hard to move away from being the face of Ewaso Lions, because we are a team. We are the most extraordinary team. Jenaria, who started with me when he was just 19 years of age, is now our director of community conservation. He is so dedicated, and lions mean absolutely everything to him. Rasan, whose mission in life is to bring all Kenyans to get on board with understanding conservation and supporting conservation. Manteli, our passionate mama Simba, these are just a few examples of the real leaders in Ewaso Lions. The whole team are leaders. And a couple of years ago, I was thrilled when my team actually traveled to America to talk about Ewaso Lions and fundraise for the project. And for the first time in almost a decade, I stayed home. I was here dealing with a distemper crisis, an outbreak that was affecting the endangered wild dogs. And my team was in America, and I couldn't be more proud. I was just thrilled that everyone was getting to know more of the team. And I realized I have a long way to go in this, but it's definitely what drives me every day, to move away from that one-face model, which just is not sustainable and is not fair. You look at the picture of the Ewaso Lions team and it is so diverse, and that again makes me so proud. We think of what is a conservationist, and often growing up here I would always think of conservationists as being pale and male, and that really is the reality. If you look at a number of conservation organizations, they are very much pale and male, and it's great to see this changing now, and it has to change. The profile of a conservationist shouldn't be dependent on education and whether you have a PhD or not, shouldn't be about only being men, and that sadly is a reality. There are such few women leaders in conservation across Africa. And so all this is something that needs to change, and it is great to see some efforts being made to change it. Such efforts include We Africa, Women for the Environment, which is a new program really building up women leaders across Africa. What it really all comes down to is good leadership, something that we all are striving towards and what needs to really improve across conservation, the conservation sector. With good leadership, we can build diverse and more inclusive teams. We can collaborate more because we really do need to. So many conservation projects have the same goals, and as long as we have the same shared values, collaboration is key to having greater conservation impact. When I moved here all those years ago and started Ewaso Lions, I had no clear vision. I had no strategy. There were days I really didn't know what I was doing. But over the years and working with my team and our communities, this has all become so much clearer. And my personal vision for the future is to see the team continue to grow, to continue to have that ownership they have over the project and over this incredible landscape. To see so many things I've spoken about come to life, inclusion and diversity and collaboration and more women leaders, all that should play strong roles in conservation. There's some things that really I hope end, such as colonial science or parachute science. And for me, I would love to see lions continuing to roam this landscape, this connected community landscape, where they have a healthy prey base, where they have good grasslands for the prey, and where the custodians of lions and the other wildlife continue to want to live alongside them. And that for me is where I hope the next part of my journey takes me.
Okay, let's bring Shivani back. Shivani, thank you so much for doing that for us. I know the signal can be tricky at your tent. We've hosted you several times from your tent over the years. It's always been a blast. And you're right, varying degrees of signal success.
Yeah, no, definitely. Sometimes it's hit and miss here. And finally, the wind has calmed down a bit. So that's good.
Perfect. Great timing. What I noticed and others are noticing is you use community a lot in the share today, how important it is to build that community, have community involvement, make the community faces part of the project. Is that something that you kind of knew or had a feeling about right away, or did that come after a little bit of time in the field?
I think it was pretty much immediately as soon as I moved into a community landscape. So where I am now, although it looks very wild and there's nothing behind me, there's villages all around me. And because my team come from villages, very quickly, by spending time with them, by learning from them, by exploring this area, it wasn't long before I realized that really lion conservation isn't really about lions. It is about people. And everything we do is rooted in traditional values and the culture of the communities here. So yes, it wasn't long before I got here that I realized that if we wanted to make any headway in lion conservation, it was about really investing in the communities here, making this about them and not me, making this about their project, their lions. Coexistence has always been part of their life. So I felt that my role was just, how can I make it slightly easier for them to continue to live alongside lions? So it was very much the beginning.
All right, I love that. And you know, the one face approach, not having one face, we have seen that so much with the Warrior project that you have with Mama Simba, with last year during the Global Biodiversity Festival, when we had I think, a super distinct honor of hosting Generia for its first virtual event. That was such an awesome experience. The next question that we have coming in is about advice you would give a young conservation.
Oh gosh, sorry, Joe. Could you repeat that, please? It just suddenly got very windy.
Yeah, no worries. The next question in the chat is about advice you would give a young conservationist, someone who's just getting started but wants to be in the field.
I think the advice I would give a very young person who's just starting out is, when you start out, you have so much energy and drive and youthfulness, and there is quite a risk of burning out. So my advice actually to a conservationist starting out is, don't forget your well-being, and that's something quite new for me. I think for so many years, I never quite thought about my well-being, or the fact that, I thought I could just keep going. I can drive a Suzuki every day for the next 30 years, which is really not possible. That Suzuki causes a lot of damage to your neck and your back. So I think for me, it's very much about take care of yourself. So yes, whilst you're getting stuck into real conservation, don't forget your well-being. Have breaks. Take that time you need to refresh and to step away if you have to. The last year and a half has been really interesting with, obviously COVID and not being able to travel much. But what I've done is every 6 weeks, I go away camping somewhere. So I still stay in Samburu, but I will go camping somewhere, and I will just take that step away. So I think that well-being and that taking constant breaks and really thinking about your health is important, because that youthfulness and that energy and that sort of, I can do this forever, that does disappear quite quickly. And I've been here almost 20 years now, and I sort of think back to my days when I first moved here to now, and it's much harder. So yes, think about your well-being and really think about taking care of yourself, and as you're getting stuck into conservation.
All right, that's some great advice, Shivani. Andrea's wondering, picking up on that, when you touched on parachute scientists, she's wondering, what would you say, or what would you say to someone who's stubborn and maybe doesn't really understand that need to work with the community?
What would I say to that person? Goodness. I would say to that person to really try and open their minds, because I think that stubbornness is leading to a huge closed mindset. Open your minds. Read. There was a fantastic article that came out last year, actually written by my colleague with 20 other women across Africa, and it was about race, power, and privilege in conservation. And it brings up this issue of parachute science. Read articles like that. Really dig into the issues that really face conservationists. And that is one big issue, this whole concept of parachute science. So try and open your mind. That's what I would tell someone who's very stubborn and really, sort of struggling to see that whole concept of parachute science. Asha DeVos wrote a great article on it. Rasan, my colleague, touched on it in this article that came out last year in Monga Bay. Read, learn, talk to people. So, you know, it's not just coming from one source, but it's coming from multiple sources. Just keep your mind open, keep your mind open, and be willing to grow. I think that is a key, is this whole mindset of growth. And I think, I mean, I'll speak from my own experience in the past. I hate change. I am someone who doesn't like change at all. But I think the older you get, the more experience you get, it's so important to grow as leaders. So have that mindset of growth, and that hopefully will get someone through that stubbornness of parachute science.
Absolutely. Well, Shivani, you are an incredible leader, not only for your team, but other conservationists. You just have to take a look at what you're doing and see how you lead through example. And you've created just an incredible community, an incredible group of projects that have made a huge difference in your area of northern Kenya. So thank you so much, Shivani, for the work you do. Thank you so much for spending some time with us today during the
Thank you so much, Joe, and thank you for everyone watching.
All right, you enjoy the rest of your evening.
Thanks so much.